This this is the Impressions Exchange Podcast.
Impressions Exchange Podcast.
Where all topics impacting the graphic imaging and printing industry are addressed via in-depth news coverage, analysis, and timely interviews.
Hi, I'm Denise Gustafson, Editorial Director for Printing United Alliance, and the guest host for the special Printing Impressions podcast series in celebration of Women's History Month, highlighting women in the printing industry. During this series, I'll have the opportunity to talk with women from all segments of the industry about their experiences and their journey as a woman in the industry. So it's my pleasure today to introduce Tammie Davies. She's Senior Account Executive with Imagine. So Tammie, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's such a pleasure. So to get us started, tell me a little bit about what you do for Imagine as their Senior Account Executive.
Mainly, I get the privilege of working with crazy talented people to develop engaging retail environments. I love it. I love everything about it. I love the process of the brainstorming and inspiration with the clients and with the people that I work with at Imagine. I love the prototyping. I love the value engineering. Most of all, I love walking into a store and seeing it executed in the stores. Mainly to help it drive their business and our business. So,
It's always amazing to see that idea come to life, especially when you've started with the brainstorming
right.
and all the iterations, and then to walk in and there it is.
That's right.
Fully realized, in place.
Exactly. It's powerful.
It's so different when you might see it on the production floor, but it's not really where it's going. It's not its final spot for it. So to see it finally where it belongs and how it matches with the rest of the branded interior and the whatever promotions that are going on, it's always fun.
Exactly. And also seeing how the customers are perceiving it and talking about it. I love to stay in a store a little while just to see the customer's perception. Do they stop at this display? Do they go in this direction? So it's very interesting tracking the consumer based upon what you've put into the store as well.
Yeah, how are they interacting with it? If there's a QR code, are they using it? Are they not using it?
Right.
How exactly do they interact with that point of purchase display or whatever it is?
Exactly.
How did you get started? Because obviously I'm guessing this wasn't what you planned when you were in high school and college, unless maybe it was.
No, it absolutely wasn't. In college, I was on the pre-law track, and that kind of got diverted after a criminal justice class that I wasn't too thrilled with. But it did actually kind of start in high school, though, in college. I started early working for Champ Sports, and I worked through high school and college. And the day before I was graduating, my first manager from Champs called me and she was like, "Hey, have you graduated yet?" And I was like, "No, I graduate tomorrow." And she was like, "I want you to come be visual director at the sporting goods chain that she had moved to." And she ultimately, you will hear more about her because she is definitely one of my mentors. I literally started the very next week working for Hibbett Sporting Goods, and I became the visual director. She invested in me. She sent me to every type of training there was possible. And I just really grew there. I was the print buyer. I wrote the visual standards. I actually did special events and video training. And so just really a lot of different things. From there, I was recruited to another company, and I was working at that company. Actually, one of my vendors said, "Hey, I really think we need your talent on our side, on the selling side." And I haven't looked back since then. It's been great because I feel like one of the reasons that I've had the success that I have is I have been on the other side. So I've been in the visual director's position or manager's position, and I understand the constraints and timelines and things that they have to deal with on that side. So part of my job is I feel like, okay, how can I make their job easier? How can I alleviate some of the struggles and challenges that they deal with? It's worked out really well.
And because of your background, you understand what they're going through.
Exactly. Exactly. Some days it's Can I help you write a directive? Other days it's, hey, do you want me to just listen to you vent about what's happening? Or just a neat thing. It really is to have that perspective, which is different from a lot of people.
But it's so interesting that you were going for a law degree.
Exactly.
And you ended up in visual branding.
Exactly.
Do you use any of what you learned in law now, or is that really something that was just kind of a blip at that point?
It was really just a blip at that point. It really was.
So what was so interesting to you about moving into that visual branding role and working with print?
I think mainly is, again, I really love to see things come to fruition. I really love challenges. So at the retailer that I went to that now has over, goodness, I think they have 1,200 stores now or 1,300 stores, they did not have a visual department at that time. So it was exciting for me to go and develop this and create. And then from there, it was like, oh, not only can I do this for myself, but now I can help all these clients do the same exact thing. So it was a challenge and also a passion. I just really love it.
Which is great. But obviously, as you mentioned, you had a very strong role model and a mentor to you.
I did.
Why was it important for you to have that person?
I think mainly is the investment in me as a person. She taught me so many things. She also was very tough on me. It was not easy. It was long hours of working, long training sessions. It was just really created a great platform for me to take with me into the future. I was young, I soaked it all up. And to this day, I still talk to her about, she taught me something called management by objectives, which is pretty much exactly what it is. But I use that every day in my life. I use it in my personal life. I use it in my professional life, setting the goals that you need that day, that week, that month, that year. What are your 3-year goals, your 5-year goals? And then holding yourself accountable and checking yourself of, did I achieve these goals or did I not? And if I didn't, why didn't I achieve those goals? So she just really invested in me and she pushed me out of my comfort zone. She was not going to let me stay at status quo.
And you said she invested in training too.
Yes, she did.
Now,
She sent me to Maine for 2 weeks. She sent me to Texas. Dale Carnegie was huge back then. I'm dating myself, but
that's okay.
I did the Dale Carnegie training, and so it was a lot, and I enjoyed every minute of it.
So in terms of, for you, you were on basically the print buyer side at first.
Right.
Before you eventually moved over to the other side. I won't say the dark or light side, the other side.
Right, the other side.
What have you observed in regards to gender roles? On the print buyer side, there's probably a certain balance between men and women versus the print side is a different balance, I would imagine. Can you kind of talk about the differences that you've observed?
Over the years, it's changed a lot. However, I can remember my very first sales meeting, and I looked around the room, and I was the only female in the room. And I thought to myself, this is a little intimidating. But then I also thought to myself, this is a little bit empowering as well, because I had the singular perspective of a female in that room that I could voice my opinion on whatever it may be at that time. It was somewhat of an obstacle, but also an opportunity, if that makes sense.
It
And
does,
then
because it depends on how you view it.
exactly, that's exactly right. It's how you view it. And I think the one thing that I have seen over the years that I just absolutely love is mainly in print at the beginning, there were very few female salespeople or account executives. There were very few people or women in the production area. The females were more in finance and creative and in those areas. And now I look at Imagine as an example, and we have female press operators. We have females that are running operations. We have females that are guiding the strategy of our company. And I just love where we are now. Do I think that all of the bias has been gone away? No. I do think there's still some bias there, but I think it's not intentional bias anymore, if that makes sense. I think it's more unintentional bias. But yes, it's been a journey, I should say, because even with different things like salaries and whatever it may be, there has been challenges along the way, but I've also looked at them as opportunities.
And honestly, part of how you view them, I think, is important because that builds or that tells you how to react to them.
Right.
Whether it's a positive thing or whether it's a negative thing, how you view them colors your reaction to them.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
And one of the things that you mentioned that Imagine is a great example that there's women in many different roles that were, if you look back even a decade ago, may have been non-traditional for women to be a
Correct.
press operator, to be in certain areas, even to break through the glass ceiling, to go into the C-suite. How do you think that has helped the industry, helped Imagine when it comes to having women in some of those leadership positions? Why do you think it's important to have women in those types of positions and in those diverse amount of positions?
I think that's a twofold answer. Basically, I think one being that I think women are very savvy business people, first of all. I think that women bring a creative sense to the positions. I believe that they're multitaskers, so they are more flexible to handle the many challenges that print brings along. And I also believe that they're service oriented, meaning that they want to help people along. They're in tune with the people that they are leading, and they are also serving those leaders. Not to say that men don't do it too, because there are, but I feel like that those are some of the natural gifts that women have that make them incredible leaders.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think that it's important right now because we need to bring more females into our industry. It is such a fun industry. And I'm a mom of two amazing girls. One's 22, the other one's 18. My older daughter, she's on her med school track, but my younger one is a senior in high school right now. And I want her to know that there's a ton of different positions in the print world that you could also do. And a lot of females at this age don't look at print as a career. They look at it as, oh, it's print or whatever it is. Social media is so big right now, the internet, that type of thing. And so I share with them often, print is not going away. 15, 20 years ago, oh, everything's going to be digital. There's not going to be any more print. There will be no more screen printing. And here we are 25 years later, and we're still doing print. We still have locations to visit. It's not all online shopping. And so I think educating the younger generation is very important right now. I'm on a mission with Imagine right now of let me go to some of these colleges and talk to females about our industry, about joining on the sales side as a sales intern. We get lots of interns, but mainly not on the sales side of things. So I would like to see that happen more in our industry as a whole. Honestly, Imagine is the first company that I've worked with that has a lot of interns. And so I really appreciate that. A lot of our employees that we have started as an intern. So that's exciting.
That is exciting. And it proves that for those interns, they saw the career path that they could have.
Right, exactly.
Male or female, doesn't matter. They saw that
Right.
there was a career involved, that there was something that they can work toward.
Absolutely.
And like your point, people don't know the print industry.
Correct.
They might see a sign on the street. They might see a package in the supermarket. Without print, where would we be? Imagine trying to go to a grocery store and there was no print on any of the packaging.
Right? No directory signing of where to go, what to do.
Imagine if you were looking for a little cup of yogurt. There's nothing on it. Is it yogurt? Is it cottage cheese? Well, when you open it, you're going to find out one way or the other if you're right.
Absolutely.
Even during COVID, it was an essential business.
Absolutely. Exactly. They don't know about it. And honestly, some of our clients now as well, when we have younger clients that come in, we immediately want to get them into our office and see the facility and walk them through the path of print, because a lot of them don't know actually the whole process of what it takes to get something created and printed and kit packed and shipped out to a store. So I think it's important for us to definitely let people know who we are in our print industry, but on the other side with our clients and that type of thing, let them understand what it takes to make things happen and how many careers are involved.
Mm-hmm. And like you said, on the print buyer side, that's changed dramatically over the last few years.
Yes.
They're younger.
Exactly.
They're digital natives, so they just take for granted what they see around them.
That's exactly right.
It's a sign. Of course, there's going to be a sign there. Why wouldn't there be a sign?
Right. That's exactly it. And I think that that's one of the things when I look at mentoring other young women or young men, one of the things that I like to share with them is don't try to skip steps. Don't try to graduate college and then get into the C-suite or whatever it may be, which this generation as a whole, because it's instant gratification, a lot of times that's the expectation. And it's the journey and the experience you gain in the journey that gets you to the C-suite or whatever position you're aiming for. And I talked to them a lot about that, of just soak it all in, learn all the different positions. And not only that, it helps you in your job, because whatever position you're in at that time, because then you can understand what they're dealing with. Like we talked about me with the visual directors. Well, I also need to understand what the kit packing leader is dealing with so that I can educate my customer on what we have to get done before this program can go out.
One other area that I want to touch on, you touched on a little bit, is the family aspect. You mentioned you have 2 daughters.
I do.
But you've also had a career in the
Yes.
print industry, print buyer, and as in the actual print shop itself. How do you balance those demands between your professional life and your personal life?
Well, I would say that I'm not sure that I balance it. I feel like that I have a bunch of balls in the air and I'm praying one doesn't fall.
Okay.
I think it's perspective again, like we talked about that earlier, just in the fact that, hey, I've been married for 27 years. I have, like I mentioned, the 2 daughters. I have my mother is ill and bedridden and has been with me for 22 years of that 27 years. And I also have 2 Dalmatians. So on the personal side, life is crazy. And on the professional side, life can be crazy. And that's one thing I love about it. It's a challenge every day. And I think that you find peace with yourself regarding, hey, everything may not be absolutely perfect and exactly the way that you want it, right? There's just too many balls in the air.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to give yourself grace on what you are achieving. And for my girls, especially, I'm hoping that I'm setting an example to them that you can be a career woman and you can also be a good mother and a good wife and a good daughter or whoever that is. You just have to balance it all. I don't pretend that it's easy all the time because it's not. Some days it's very, very, very challenging. But overall, it's been so gratifying. Just everything that I've done and the people that I've met, the relationships, my customers I've had for anywhere from 15 to 25 years. So I've had the same customers for that long. They're family to me. My girls know them. They know my girls. They've watched them be born and raised and off to college. And I wouldn't give that up for anything. It's been a great journey, honestly.
And I'm sure there's good days and bad days. There's days
Right.
when one overwhelms the other, depending upon what's going on.
That's exactly right. Some days it's heavy focus on my career. Some days it's heavy focus on the girls. Some days there's a balance. You just have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with that chaos of juggling it all and knowing that sometimes balls fall. I mean, they do, but you pick yourself up and you figure it out and you move on.
Easier said than done, though,
Exactly.
I imagine.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Because I'm sure there were some nights when you probably said, I can't do this.
Yes, there have been several nights that I have said that. I'm very fortunate. My husband has always been a huge supporter of my career. So that's been a blessing to have that. I think that that definitely has helped.
So on those days where you say, I can't do this anymore, you obviously have a heavy responsibility with the family side, with your mom,
Mhm.
kids, family. What made you stick to it? What made you stay the course that you had, that you wanted to continue your career, even though you had these other responsibilities?
I think it goes back to the passion and the joy I find from what I'm doing and the people that I work with. I love it. Sometimes it is my sanity. I know that sounds crazy, but it is my sanity to be able to create and to help other people. And I think that that's really what has kept me going.
I can imagine that. I can understand that too. Now, you touched on this a little bit earlier about networking. So, how important is it for you in regards to networking and community involvement for your professional growth?
I think it's huge. I think it's huge because you have to build your personal brand in doing a position like that I'm in sales as an account executive. You have to have some type of reputation of making things happen and being trustworthy. And you have to work for companies that also have that same branding of offering different types of print and being able to juggle multiple programs at a time. And I think that in our industry, unless you are on LinkedIn or on some type of other social media showing some of the things that you can do, you're missing out on a whole generation, basically. As we talked about, of the younger generation coming in, and they're so accustomed to finding things on social media, on the internet, on LinkedIn. And if you are not doing those type of things, then you're going to miss those opportunities. I also think that building your brand of yourself and your company and that exposure will draw in the same type of people that you want to work for your company or be clients.
Hmm. Now, you mentioned your personal brand and how
Right.
important it is for you to have one of those. But how do you cultivate that? How do you build it? How do you maintain it?
I think that basically goes back to what we talked about before, is not skipping the steps, having the experience, creating a reputation for yourself that you are creative and you are trustworthy and you can make things happen. And that continues to build your reputation in the industry. I mentioned earlier that I've had the same clients for many, many years. And when those clients leave one place and go somewhere else, then I have a new client because now they have gone to another company, wherever it may be. And I think it's important to keep that. The way that I look at it is my job is to make our clients' life easier. And to be honest with them and to help them. So Imagine has amazing capabilities, but let's say that we come across something that we don't particularly do well, or we don't really have that capability. what I'll do is I'll go and find someone that does have that capability, that has a really good reputation. And I'll go back to my clients and say, hey, I don't think this is the right fit for us, but I found you this other place. So I think part of building your brand and your company is making sure you're really looking out for your clients, because at the end of the day, you want them to be successful. And if they're successful, you're successful.
Mm-hmm. And it all boils down to the fact that we do business with people.
Right, exact relationships. That's my relationships. And I think that COVID actually showed that more than anything else, because as you said, we were an essential business and I'm in the South. So most of my clients were open during that time and we had the relationship. So there was no visits, there were no prototypes, there were no whatever needed to be done in person. It was all done with me sitting in Canton, Georgia, and them sitting wherever they were.
Mm-hmm. Definitely made a difference.
It did.
So knowing what you know now, based on your years between being a print buyer, now in the production side and the printing side, what advice would you give yourself if you were just starting in the industry now?
I would tell myself to enjoy the ride more. Like, I look back at things when you're young and you're naive and you're wanting to just learn more and more. You can sometimes be a little intimidated, a little stressed, a little worried for whatever reason. And I think for me, I would tell myself to enjoy the ride more, because I look back on it and the opportunities that I had and the things that I have experienced in my career are pretty amazing. And most importantly, the people that I've met. And I am very grateful that I was smart enough to keep those relationships, even from my very first mentor, which I have to brag on her a little bit because she is the 7th woman to be inducted into the Sporting Goods Hall of Fame. There's only 7, and she was one of them just recently.
That's awesome.
It is. It's awesome. And I think that the other thing that I would also tell myself and tell anyone that I was mentoring is you can learn something from every single person that you meet, and to take advantage of those opportunities. And it doesn't matter how old you are or young you are. I learn from the new people coming in. They're so savvy with technology. They're so savvy with social media and things like that. And be open to that. Be open to experience life through other people's eyes sometimes as well.
Well, those are 2 really good pieces of advice.
Oh, thank you.
So Tammie, thank you so much for spending a little time with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And thanks again.